Hello, football fans. Welcome back. This is the divisional weekend coverage for the 2023 season for the Scuffed Football Podcast. This is Noah. I'm Ted. Let's get right to it, man. So, last week in the wild card round, we're just going to take these games in order. Texans beat the shit out of the Browns. We were just talking right before I hit the record button that neither one of us really saw this game coming. We knew that the Texans' offense was pretty good. We thought that the Browns' defense was really good. This one was a surprise to me, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think we both came into the week thinking, Browns are the hotter team. Browns have a better defense. And to be honest, it was really the Texans' defense that showed up. This was definitely a surprise. I mean, I ruined all my parlays from the start. It was, just, great. But no, that was a pretty impressive performance. I mean, coming in, we thought the Texans still had some injury, questions, and they still do, but they showed up and they got it done.
Yeah, I found it interesting that their offense looked so explosive without one of their star two receivers. They really made a good Browns defense look super pedestrian. And then I think the Browns also suffered from not having a starting quarterback. I don't want to insult Joe Flacco here, right? Like, I think he did fine through most of the season, right? But I think the fatigue kind of set in. I think the limited offense, because he's only been with the team for 4 or 5 weeks, was demonstrably different. And then there wasn't really an answer from Cleveland as far as stopping the Texans from getting into the backfield. Like you said, that Texans defense actually stood up and did a really good job. That I was pretty impressed with the Texans. I didn't expect them to look this solid coming into the playoffs. Next game we had should have normally been a little bit different of a schedule, but Steelers and Bills got postponed. So we ended up with Dolphins-Chiefs as our second game. I think the Chiefs took care of business in a way that was pretty expected. I don't know that we expected quite this level of pedestrian out of the Dolphins, but I think this game went about the way we expected when we talked last week.
Yeah, I mean, again, we both kind of knew or thought that, coming in, Dolphins, again, still can't find a way to win when it matters. And so, I mean, and Chiefs kind of rounded back into form. Rashee Rice, have yourself a day. I was Chiefs are starting to look a little better. Dolphins are still the same team that I thought they were.
I find it fascinating that it took us 18 weeks to realize that Rashee Rice can catch a football even when nobody else can. Like, how many times have we watched several of their receivers, MVS and Kadarius Toney, drop footballs this season, right? Like, we were talking about the drops all season long, and Rashee Rice is like, "Hey, I'm over here," and then they did just fine on offense, right? Like, yeah. The Dolphins' defense wasn't necessarily awful. 26 points to the Chiefs, who were playing well, is nothing to be stressed out about, right? But I think the Dolphins definitely need some help on offense. I do trust their play calling, and I think they're good. Obviously, they've got one of the best receivers in the league, and him being limited with injuries from a couple of weeks ago obviously changes things for the Dolphins, right? But something's just not there. Something isn't clicking as far as being able to make it happen when there's a good team. I'm not sure if it's McDaniel. I'm not sure if it's Tua. I don't know if it's just guys underperforming or if we just happen to get really lucky and see the Dolphins flub it every time it's a good team on their schedule, right? Like, if it is just completely random, find it super interesting. But hopefully the Dolphins can take this and build on it next season. But I didn't want to see another Chiefs playoff win. I really didn't. All right, so then we moved into the NFC. The next game was Packers and Cowboys. I think this was the surprise of the weekend, to be completely honest with you. The Packers offense was absolutely unstoppable. It felt like every time I looked over at this game, the Packers had the ball again, and they were on the 30-yard line ready to score. Whether it was a touchdown or a field goal, it just felt like it was every single time. Jordan Love looked really good, even with Myles Garrett playing well. Dak had a couple of turnovers, but I wouldn't necessarily say he had a bad game. He threw for 400 yards. CeeDee Lamb was the only person from the Cowboys that I thought just didn't show up at all. But I did not expect this kind of dominant offense out of the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, I got to show some love. I mean, I've been writing Jordan Love off and, coming in, doing right. No, again, I definitely didn't expect it. Cowboy-wise, I think Dak still played a decent game. Obviously, those two turnovers, like they did lead into points. Obviously, one of them being a pick six. But yeah, I mean, they were. I was stunned by the Packers here.
Yeah, I know there's the joke that the Cowboys always leave the playoffs early. They can't win a playoff game, right? And I'm not even here to do that today as much as I want to and definitely enjoyed seeing it, right? I guess it's just I don't understand how the Cowboys can look this good for most of the season in a year that the NFC is arguably less than it was the year before. They can steal a division, get a home playoff game where they're undefeated this season, and then lose this game. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I don't understand how it happens. We'll come back to the coaching or the Cowboys questions in a few minutes, because I kind of want to pit the Eagles and Cowboys against each other and make sure I'm not insane. Noah's going to tell me I'm fucking losing it, but we'll do that later. Next game, like we predicted, certainly game of the week. Rams and Lions. Lions steal this one by a point at the end of the game. This was a fun watch, man. This was a fun watch. It's upsetting that the Rams looked that good this weekend and are going to end up going home, but I am super excited to see the Lions win a playoff game for the first time in 30 years. Very exciting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. We both knew this was going to be a really good one. Storylines, just in general, the teams. I don't know. I have mixed feelings. Obviously, like I did want the Lions to obviously overcome that drought, but I still kind of like the Rams. I mean, at least it's kind of good momentum pushing into, like next season, that they know, even though they've been banged up, they have a decent roster. I mean, they put up a fight against the number 3 seed, so you got to think that, they're going to try and get most of their players back. So I think it bodes well for them, even though it was a loss. Lions keep on rolling.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think this was just a feel-good story for whoever made it. Like, yeah, the Rams had theirs a couple of years ago, but Stafford is a dude that's pretty much impossible to not root for. Like Jared Goff and the Lions taking out the Rams that traded him away. Like, I don't know. I think that's a cool story, and props for the city of Detroit, man. Taking a playoff win, like, that's got to feel really, really good. And I hope it keeps rolling, because it feels like a lot of fun.
Agreed. Next
game we had was Steelers-Bills. I honestly, I don't think there's much to say about this one other than the Bills looked every bit as good as we expected. My genuinely my biggest takeaway on Josh Allen's 52-yard run, which, first off, impressive by Josh Allen, right? I'm still just kind of mad that Steelers defender got juked on Josh Allen slowing down and then speeding back up, and it's like he broke his ankles from changing speeds. That's incredible that you can play defense professionally and that kicked your ass. But no, I think the Bills played really well, man. This was we knew they were getting hot at the right time, but I think this only further cemented it.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not even gonna gloat. It's okay.
And then last game of the weekend, Eagles-Bucks. Look, man, I'm not here to make arguments for the Eagles, but I think it was very clear that yesterday they were missing A.J. Brown because he was the only thing they game planned around. Even as I've complained for the past 6 or 7 weeks that their play calling has been awful, it was filled with things like quarterback draws where they were at least taking some yards, right? But yesterday we watched the brotherly shove fail. We watched Jalen Hurts only have 4 rushing attempts. Even with his lack of rushing attempts, they still only gave DeAndre Swift 5 carries. Devontae Smith played well, but I just don't think that they were prepared to lose A.J. Brown. And even with the past few weeks as evidence, I mean, I don't think A.J. Brown made the difference there. The Bucs just kind of kept rolling and scoring. Eagles forgot to do everything, even as simple as tackling. It was just not a good performance, man. This was ugly, especially for a playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. I texted you and I was kind of like, hey, what's going on here, man? Like, yeah, I mean, I think we both kind of like could see it happening. I didn't think that the Bucs would actually kind of like blow the Eagles out in the proportion that they did. Good for them. I mean, moving on. But yeah, Eagles looked very flat, no energy. Kind of disappointing to a pretty decent season regarding the last few weeks of football there.
Yeah, I said it to Noah in a text yesterday. I said that, well, if the Cowboys already lost, then the most heartbreaking thing left to do is for the Eagles to lose in the first round of the Bucs, and so they did. But yeah, I good for Baker Mayfield, good for the Bucs offense. I mean, everybody's kind of written the NFC South off all season, so I guess it is nice to see them take a playoff win and maybe validate themselves as a a competitive team in a maybe a less than ideal division, but my excitement is mostly to see if this turns into another contract for Baker Mayfield, and hopefully he gets a shot to keep performing, whether it's with the Bucs or elsewhere. Like I think this kind of affirms that he had a good season and deserves another shot, right? Let's move into this week and break down the future games. So Ravens had their bye week. They'll get the first game this weekend. They'll play the Texans as the lowest remaining seed. What are you excited for here? How do you see it going?
Oh God! Here's the thing. I mean, I just counted the Texans out. That being said, I still think the 19 days, the 2 weeks off that the Ravens had is going to be exceptional. They're going to look young, rejuvenated. Again, I saw that report. Mark Andrews might be back, so if he definitely does, I believe they'll probably easily get a win here. Maybe not easily. I think the Texans can put up a fight, but I expect the Ravens to come out on top.
Yeah, for me, I think it's pretty cut and dry at this point to me, right? The Ravens are the best team in football, at least through the regular season, right? Playoffs get played, and obviously there's surprises. Like, it's football. That's how it works, right? I think the thing for me that makes this game feel closer than I would have told you it was a week ago is that I just watched the Texans dismantle a pretty good defense in Cleveland, right? They just played. They're hot. They're rolling, right? You score 45 points, you're not going to cool off in a week. And now Baltimore, like you said, has had their 19 days off. That kind of makes you wonder, like, how hot can they come in? Even if they are the best team, right? They still have to find their momentum after 3 weeks off. The spread on this game is the Ravens by 9.5. I honestly, I think for me, like, my money on that spread will be on the Texans. Even if I expect Baltimore to be the better team, I think this game is going to be a whole lot closer than 10 points. I think this should turn into good football based on what we've seen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I'd be taking the Texans on the spread, but I still expect, Ravens here. So,
moving into Saturday night, we've got Packers and 49ers. Man, looking at these teams makes me excited. Mostly because if the Packers are being underestimated and they can go into Dallas and beat the shit out of them, maybe they can also go into San Francisco and beat the shit out of the Niners. The Niners just have a ridiculously good roster, and I think it'll be very hard to pick against them. But I am excited to see the Packers roll in. Similar to the situation with the Ravens, the 49ers have also had the time off. I'm pretty excited for this one, to be honest.
Yeah, no, agreed. I'm looking forward to this one, yeah.
We'll see what Brock Purdy can do. I know his playoff run got cut short last year with his injury in the NFC Championship game. So I as much as I don't want him to win MVP, I am very excited to see him get an actual real shot in the playoffs. 49ers are healthier than they were last year, but the Packers are still playing well, man. The spread for this one is also 9.5 for the Niners. This one I can feel a little better and take the Niners minus 9.5.
Yeah, I'm taking Niners as well, yeah.
All right. Back to Sunday and the NFC, Bucs get the Lions this week. It just feels like a hell of a reward for the Buccaneers to win a game against a really good Eagles team, or on paper, a really good Eagles team, and then walk into a hot Detroit who played a really good football game against arguably a better team than the Packers. How do you see this one going, man?
I mean, I think, unfortunately, like, I do believe the Lions pick up a second one here. Again, it is at home. I see the Lions coming out on top. I think it'll still be a game. I think, Bucks have a chance. But I still firmly expect the Lions to be winners here.
I'm with you on the Lions. I think that they're the better team here, and I think they've been more consistent through the season. But I also think it's a really big deal that they get to play in Detroit. I watched the city of Detroit go apeshit for winning a wild card weekend playoff round, right? Like, and now instead of going into Dallas like they would if this were higher seeds win, right? Now they get a home game against arguably the weakest division in football. Like, that place is going to be raucous. You won't be able to hear the announcers through the first quarter of that game, I promise you. Especially if the Lions take an early lead, I'll be able to hear Detroit from my house. I think that the Lions' chances look pretty good. The spread on this one is the Lions by 6.5, and while that feels a little big, it's hard to not ride the Lions train here, man. I'm going to take them at that spread.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same.
All right. And then last game, I'm so happy they left this one for primetime. Chiefs and Bills. We get a rematch here. A few weeks ago, the difference between these two teams was an offsides player and Patrick Mahomes losing his fucking mind. I don't think anything silly like that is probably going to define the game again. At least I hope not. But historically, especially in the playoffs, we've watched this turn into some really significant, like, memorable games, even if you're not a fan of either one. I also think that, like you said earlier when we talked about the Chiefs game, that, you know, they kind of found their stride. They felt a little bit better. Obviously, the Bills are really hot as they won how many games in a row now? Or at least
won 6 in a row.
Right. Six in a row, and arguably they should have beat the Eagles. They were still the better team even when they lost before that, right? Like, the Bills are hot, but this is the better version of the Chiefs that they didn't get several weeks ago. I know what you're going to tell me as to how you want this to play out, but, like, what's a realistic expectation for you? How do you see this playing out if you're being not a Bills fan for half a second?
All right, not a Bills fan for literally half a second. I still see the Bills walking away, but I think it's different. I'm picking the Bills based off home here because we've seen them, like, we've had to go to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs, obviously, but the Chiefs have never had to play a road playoff game. And this is their first week. I think Buffalo's, like, kind of the same environment, but I think it's going to be more, you know, I think we're going to be ready. Yeah.
I think the difference for me in this one is how well the Bills defense can plan for what they saw from the Chiefs last week. I think the Chiefs offense was pretty one-dimensional. They didn't do a whole lot of running the ball, and a lot of their receptions went to the same dude. I think if the Bills defense has the ability to be a very good unit, but like we've mentioned for the past couple of weeks, they're kind of injured. Playing at home helps, but I think the bigger deal here is how well can we game plan knowing that this was their entire offense a week ago to beat the Dolphins? I also think that the Chiefs' defense is going to be a significant unit, right? We watched them do a very good job against the Dolphins, but the Bills are bigger and stronger, right? That is not as easy of a team to run over, right? Dolphins are fast as hell, but Tyreek Hill is 5'9", I think. Like, you can run through that man. I think the Bills are going to be a much more physical game, and in the cold in Buffalo, especially if there's still that 10 feet of snow in the stands, right? Like, that's a much harder place to go into and feel successful, right? I know the Chiefs game was cold, but now I got to do it again and go to Buffalo where you know it's going to be just as cold. The spread on this one is Bills by 2.5. I don't know that I would feel safe putting actual money on this, but I think I'm with you, man. I think I would take the Bills in this one. They feel like they're riding a hotter hand, but I hope that this one turns into another playoff classic. And God knows I'm rooting against Patrick Mahomes in another AFC Championship game. I'm tired of it.
So you're a Bills fan for a day.
Hey, listen, I've never had anything against the Bills other than, like, it upsets you to see them lose, and that kind of makes me giggle a little. Yeah. All right. As always, lines are provided by FanDuel as of Tuesday. They're subject to change. Please gamble responsibly. I'm not even going to give the whole spiel this week. Be responsible. Do your thing. There's a couple other NFL topics I want to talk about just before we get out of here. We brought up coaching a little bit last week, so I kind of want to ride that train a little bit more. We watched Belichick separate from his team. We talked about Vrabel last week. A couple of these jobs are already getting some interviews, so where are realistic places you see Belichick and Vrabel landing?
I mean, I've only really read reports on Belichick. Again, he's had an interview with the Falcons. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I think the Falcons have talent, but I mean, I don't see Belichick on the Falcons sideline. I mean, I think I see him differently. We have yet to see if he's going to go for the Chargers interview. So I guess we'll see. As for Vrabel, I haven't really seen much from him. So you'd probably know more than that.
I want to see. I don't know if I have good guesses for where either one of them ends up. I think in as much as I would hate it, I think an ideal landing spot for Belichick would probably be Washington. They've got okay guys on defense. They have a GM who's ready to make moves, send some pieces, get some pieces, right? Like, I think Washington is a place that if Belichick just walks in to coach and not be the GM, I think Washington could be a successful place. They're obviously set up to go and get another new franchise quarterback, right? Because I don't think that Sam Howell is the answer. And I think the things that Washington is willing to do and play a strong defense kind of leans into Belichick's strengths. I think that would be a very interesting place for him, but we'll see if he wants the interview because Washington is still a little bit of a dumpster fire. As far as Vrabel goes, I want to see him get a shot with another like successful-ish team, right? I don't want to see him walk into Kansas City and take Andy Reid's job kind of successful, right? But like, I think it would be super interesting if he ended up somewhere like Seattle that has the pieces that they can compete now, even if they're not necessarily Super Bowl favorites. I kind of want to see what he can do with another talented roster full of guys that you know, maybe he does something that Pete Carroll didn't do, or even just changing the philosophy to see what kind of team he can make Seattle. I think that one would be super fascinating.
No, I actually like that idea of him going to Seattle. I think I'd like that.
The other question I've got as far as coaching, now that the college season is wrapped up, Harbaugh is apparently rumored to be taking some meetings with some NFL teams. I don't know if I've voiced my opinions on Harbaugh to this podcast or if that was just Noah laughing at me after we stopped hitting record last week. I don't understand him getting a job, but I know that people are very high on his coaching. So, of the openings, where do you believe it's realistic that would be interested in Harbaugh? Where, if he comes to the NFL and leaves Michigan, where do you see him going?
I have no idea. I think he's taking meetings. I don't think we're expecting him to actually come join the NFL. I do believe he'll probably stay in the college game, so I'm really not worried. I know I've sent you a few links because I knew it'd make you mad. But beyond that, I think he's probably staying college and just taking these just to see what's out there.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that he's looking for NFL jobs. Not because I think he wouldn't take the opportunity if the right one fell into his lap, right? But I think that Michigan is an ideal spot for him. He kind of gets to stay as long as he wants, especially because he just won a national title, right? But I also think that, like, the last time he was rumored for the NFL, it was that whole like Dolphins collusion scandal where they were trying to get Brady to be a part owner so they could then pull him out of retirement and take his rights from Tampa, right? Or from New England at the time, right? And they were colluding to get Harbaugh in before the college season was over, right? And all of that was happening, right? And that felt like a good situation for Harbaugh to leave his college job that he had security in even before the national title, right? And end up in the NFL with Tom Brady and Tyreek Hill and right, like yeah, that's going to be a great place to walk into. I don't see Harbaugh leaving Michigan for a job like Atlanta, where there's not a whole lot going for him. Sure, there are offensive pieces in Atlanta, but it doesn't necessarily equate to winning. Arthur Smith. But I guess I'm with you in the idea that like none of these jobs feel appealing enough that they would drag Harbaugh out of Michigan. I'll be interested if it happens because I don't believe that he is warranted an NFL job at this point in time. But I'm with you in that I don't see him going anywhere just yet. At least not until something a little more flashy pops up. All right. Unless you got anything else, this one's short, sweet. We got right to it. So I think that'll wrap us up here. I'm excited for games this weekend. My ass is going to be glued to the couch watching TV, probably still laughing at the Cowboys and Skip Bayless in particular. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you here next week.